Now, we've said all along through this that we're very much in favour of collaborative planning, working with the local government if we can. But what does collaborative planning actually mean in practice? And I'm delighted that we've got Peter Studdert here, past Director of Planning, Cambridge City Council, who's going to tell us how he sees it. Peter.
Okay, well, good evening. I'm very grateful to be invited to come and speak to you. I mean, I've been struggling with the challenge of planning in Cambridge over the last 20 years of my life. And Cambridge has a lot of very similar challenges to Guildford, being a historic town, a lot of difficulties with transport strategy, with traffic, and a very sensitive and very fragile historic environment. And I think the first thing to say is that it's not easy. If anyone suggests there's some easy answers to the sort of challenges that historic towns have got, they're kidding themselves. It's a very, very difficult challenge to get it right. And I think what I want to talk about particularly in my short 10 minutes, which I shall be trying to keep to, is just to say a little bit about collaborative planning, because I think it's the only way really of making progress of these very difficult conflicting issues is working in a collaborative way and trying to bring in as many different groups as possible to understand, as much as anything, to understand what the challenges are and to see the different perspectives that can be used. So what I want to talk about a little bit is about what is collaborative planning, and then just quickly just touch on a couple of case studies from Cambridge, just to give a kind of external perspective as to how collaborative techniques could be used to solve problems at different scales. I think the thing about collaborative planning is it is a way of working. It's not rocket science. It is about addressing issues that can be addressed at a number of different scales, strategic scale, site-specific scale, or even looking at a particular theme like design quality or indeed transport. I think the main principle of collaborative planning is that it actively engages a wide range of participants. And I put stress on the actively. In other words, it doesn't just go out and see who's there to speak back to you. It's actually trying to engage with the difficult groups, young people, people with mobility problems, people who are homeless and people who don't necessarily come to meetings like this. It's actually a collaborative process that goes out to reach all the groups that are needed to be engaged in order to make the right decisions about how a place should function in the future. It's important to engage with people early in a process. So when there is some thinking going on about the new direction for a particular city, it's a question of getting in there at the very beginning, so people feel that decisions aren't being made preempting other possibilities. It uses a range of different engagement techniques, of which meetings and workshops are important, but there are other, particularly with new technology now, other ways in which one can be engaging wider audiences as well. It illustrates options and also ideas in an accessible way so that people can actually picture things, and also tries to avoid jargon. I mean, planners are terrible with jargon. We're hopeless at that. And if I use any jargon, please can someone kind of make a raspberry or something? Because we are very good at trying to make what are already quite complicated issues even more complicated. I think also the important thing about collaborative planning, it uses an iterative process, so that actually, rather than starting off with one answer, it's actually coming back and again, and looking at refining different options and testing them with the group. And the benefits of that is that it does integrate different perspectives, and so it provides engagement, a sense of ownership, so people who are involved in that process can feel that they're part of it. It identifies conflicts, because there will be conflicts. It's all about managing conflicts. You can't please everyone. You've got to strike the right balance between a range of different issues. But it also points to the means of resolving those conflicts. Ideally, what it will do is to build consensus and an understanding of the wider issues. And also, more importantly, building capacity, so people actually feel that they are able to engage and have the skills and the understanding to engage in what is quite a complicated process. And I think at the end, what it should do is also increase the likelihood of successful implementation of the strategy. Because I think if a strategy has not been prepared in the right sort of way, it becomes that much more difficult to engage. And just very briefly, just a couple of examples from Cambridge. And these are at different scales, but ways in which collaborative planning has helped us with our challenges. This is the Cambridge Futures Initiative, which was in the late 1990s, when we were starting off to review our process as to how to grow Cambridge. Same sort of issues you have here, a very booming economy, too close to London for our own good, fragile environment. How do you grow a place in a way that actually protects and enhances the good qualities of the place? It started off as an initiative between the city and the university, interestingly enough, and you have a very good university here, and I'm interested to hear how that axis is actually, whether there is potential there for collaboration. But obviously also involving wider authorities, county council. In Cambridge's case, we have a district council, South Cambridgeshire, that surrounds us. What we did in the Cambridge Futures Initiative is that we tested 7 different options, extreme options, of how Cambridge might meet its housing challenges, and then analysing them against 3 different criteria: equity and efficiency and environment. And using a research group within the university, we were then able to model those and test them and present them in 3 dimensions as a video, which for the late 1990s was still quite revolutionary at that stage. And that fed into, then, a consultation process, engagement with different groups, where we were actually saying, well, we haven't reached any answers, but these are the different options, and these are the implications under these 3 categories as to what would happen if one of those options was pursued. And these were at a strategic level. This is looking at a sub-regional level around Cambridge, were the sort of options we were looking at. And this material is still available on the website reference there, which will be there if this goes onto your website. Looking at minimum growth, densification, necklace villages, spreading the development around, taking bites out of the green belt, having growth along transport corridors, the virtual highway, which was anticipating more people working at home, or building a new town beyond the green belt as a freestanding new town. And so these were all tested, and this is an example of some of the 3D visualization that we're doing, which is fairly crude now, sort of 12 years later, but this is the densification before and after. I suppose what Eric Pickles would call this garden grabbing, I suppose now, but it was actually illustrating to people how in a kind of typical Victorian neighbourhood in Cambridge, that it was actually possible to double the density, but that would have certain consequences as a result. And one of the largest urban extension sites, which is Cambridge Airport, a privately owned airport on the east side of Cambridge, again showing what would happen if that airport was relocated and redeveloped as a new neighbourhood. I always love rather flicking backwards and forward like that. I just wish it was as easy as that. That was one of our ideas that hasn't yet come off, I have to say. But what we did with those clear visual options so that people could understand them, we then did some work in analysing them. At the bottom there, in simple terms, and you probably can't see this, but the 7 different options were given a kind of star rating against economic efficiency, social equity, and environmental quality. And people could see that there wasn't one option that ticked all the boxes, that you had to choose. Some were better environmentally, some were better economically. So it gave people the information on which they could make a balanced judgment. And all this was put into a survey report, which was then the subject of workshops and consultation with the public. And really this was the view that came out, which in a way may sound like a fairly obvious statement of the obvious, but it was a view that people could sign up to about the growth of Cambridge. People want a balance of development in Cambridge and in the region. The survey suggested a planning strategy which aimed for some growth in Cambridge through densification and expansion, together with growth outside Cambridge based on public transport links, would be the most likely to meet the aspirations of the people who live and work in the region. So it was a kind of balanced view that came out that people were prepared to sign up to. And that's really, this was a sketch that a consultant did of Cambridge, which was showing that the big circle there is a 20-minute cycle ride from the centre of Cambridge. And we were trying to get the urban expansions within easy cycling distance from the centre of Cambridge. But it was actually showing as a kind of mind map how the city could be expanding in a way that would protect the historic centre, which is the dark area, and growth could happen at these peripheral nodes in red, which could then be connected by high-quality public transport. And that's effectively what's been built in now to the local plan strategy, with new neighbourhoods to the south, the northwest, still potentially to the east where the airport is, and good connectivity through maximising cycle use, but also with things like the Cambridge guided bus as well. So it was a way in which a kind of a collaborative strategic process led to a vision for Cambridge, which has now been embodied within our statutory planning process, as well as looking wider within the sub-region at a new town beyond the Greenbelt at Northstowe, which is currently held up by the famous A14, which is one of our biggest transport problems. But finally, just one more recent initiative, which is more thematic, which is the Cambridge Equality Charter. Having decided about where these new neighbourhoods would be, what we were concerned about is making sure that they're the best neighbourhoods and that we actually make sure that the design quality, the facilities were as good as they possibly could be. So we developed a process which we called the Cambridge Equality Charter process, which was all about looking and learning to start off with, taking people out, taking politicians out, developers out, local partners, the local community society out, looking at the sort of places that we wanted, that we felt we could learn something from, and to try to define those kind of qualities that we could bring back to Cambridge. Having a series of thematic workshops that could then develop some of those ideas, and then putting this into a charter, into first of all a draft charter, which we then consulted on, and then adopted an actual formal quality charter, which is a very short document, only about 20 pages. And we've now also set up a quality panel, which is like a design review panel, which works specifically on reviewing the quality of schemes that are coming forward in the new neighbourhoods. And as part of the looking and learning, I mean, this is just some of the places we went to. A lot of them were in the UK, but some of them were in Europe. We went to Freiburg. I mean, it's fantastic, your twin with Freiburg. Freiburg is the most exciting city, I think, in Europe at the moment for creative thinking about sustainable development. And the photographs on the top right and in the middle there, you might recognise as Freiburg. But also we went to Sweden. Top left, bottom right is in Holland, and also other places in the UK. That top left photograph, guy on the left on the bicycle is a South Cambridge District Councillor. The guy with the white jacket is a county councillor. There's a back there, you've got the Chief Executive of the Local Housing Association, the Chief Executive of the Local Amenity Society, and there's some city councillors and officers in the back. And we just went round on bikes looking at these neighbourhoods in Holland to see how they actually worked, and then brought the ideas back. And this is what we put into our charter, where really the qualities that we're looking at under those 4 Cs, community, connectivity, climate and character, but with collaboration as being the 5th C that was very, very important. And so this is now owned by all the local authorities, by the members. It's rammed down developers' throats to make sure that they understand the sort of quality aspirations that the local authorities have in the new neighbourhoods. And just finishing off, I mean, coming back to Freiburg, and I hope this is familiar to many people in the audience, is that Freiburg have also got their own charter, the Charter for Sustainable Urbanism, which is on the Academy of Urbanism website, if you're not familiar with it. And here again, just in a very succinct document, Freiburg have set out their vision for the first 4 of those bullet points are about their spatial strategy: diversity, safety, intolerance, city of neighbourhoods, city of short distances, public transport and density. Then the next 4 are about content, covering education, science and culture, industry and jobs, nature and environment, design quality. And then, importantly, the last 4, which is about the process that they sign up to: long-term vision, communication and participation, reliability, obligation and fairness, and cooperation and partnership. And again, putting it into a simple document in simple language that people can understand. So there are techniques that can be used, and if you do it right, it works. It's not easy, but it works. And I wish you really the best of luck in your journey. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Peter. I certainly feel like I could do with some of that, so let's get going. I want to just pick up on that theme of collaboration, and just let's remind ourselves that actually we have already started a collaborative process, which led to a wide cross-section of views being reflected in the submission that was made to the Council on the draft master plan around Christmas time, initiated by the Guildford Society and supported by Allies and Morrison, who pulled the whole thing together. And in fact, we met probably with a number of you and others just around the corner here back in January. Anthony Rifkin, a director of A&M, and some colleagues of his are here tonight, and they're going to be sharing their perspectives on master planning in a moment. I just want to make clear that at the end of his presentation, Anthony has kindly agreed to chair a Q&A, so we will go straight into a Q&A, so gird your loins and get your questions out. And that can encompass absolutely anything we've been talking about this evening, or any other questions you may have.